welcome to Watch Symposium. I'm Austin. All right, so a paid question for Martin. He writes, Dear Austin, I sent $20 to your PayPal for making a video discussing my upcoming watch decision. I want to purchase a Rolex in a couple of months to celebrate my PhD. All right, congratulations for that, Martin. That's no small accomplishment. I think a Rolex is in order. My first real piece after a series of shitters was a Rolex 14000M Air King with white dial and Roman numerals. All right, so that's a time-only 34mm watch. Probably had a smooth bezel. I did enjoy the piece, but found it a bit boring after a while. Also, it wasn't the dial version that I really wanted, and therefore I sold it with a 7% loss. Archie warned me that the 34mm are all soft, but I ignored the pontiff, unfortunately. Ignore the pontiff at your peril. My next Rolex is going to be my main everyday watch. I can imagine adding a Grand Seiko SBGW 231 as a dress watch in the future, but I'm not the type of person building a huge collection, as I prefer to keep things simple. All right, I think we're looking at a one watch guy, and I salute you for that. I think less is more, and I think having one watch to depend on and to make memories and carry you through your life with, I think that's the way to go. You know, when you have multiple watches, you sort of divide all of those life experiences up between those pieces. And, you know, was it this watch that saw the birth of my daughter? Was it that one? Which watch did I take to that country? You know, so I think having one watch is the way to go. So good on you for that. As I liked the smaller 34mm size of the Air King, I think a 36mm Explorer 14270 or 14270 would be ideal. I tried one at a dealer and liked it. However, I also find the Milgauss 116400 white dial extremely interesting and a good value. The only problems I have: the orange might not be versatile enough, and I have small wrists. I attached 3 pictures of me wearing a 36mm Explorer, the new Air King, which is 40mm, and a 41mm Datejust. I hope from these pictures you can give me advice about the size. All right, so let's look at these pictures. All right, so he's wearing a 36mm Explorer in this picture, and it looks fine. It looks great, so no problem. In this picture, he's wearing the new Air King, which is 40mm, and it's doable for sure, but it does look a little bit big. But you know what? I think it might be the picture, because look at this. He's wearing a Wimbledon dial 41mm Datejust, and that looks fine. So it's kind of puzzling. The 41mm Datejust looks fine, but the 40mm Air King doesn't. Maybe it was the way you took the picture. Maybe it was like a wide angle lens and you were really close to the watch with the Air King picture, and so it looks a little bit bigger than it is. Or maybe that model just wears bigger. I think all are doable, but you know, I think actually the 41 Datejust looks the best in my opinion. All right, and if that's a 41mm watch, I think you're okay getting a 40mm watch. And you know, I would encourage you to kind of come to grips with that, because 40mm I think is the ideal size, and that opens up a lot of variations and possibilities, whether it's 39mm watches or 40mm steel watches with rotating bezels. And so I think you can definitely pull it off. Now, you said you've had shitters before, but what you might want to do until you are certain which watch you want to get, you might want to get a sub $200 40mm watch that sort of looks like this Air King, right? Smooth bezel, just to try it out. You might just not be used to that bigger watch, and with a little wear, you might come to love it, and you might think, you know, the 40mm is a great size for me. So I would sort of practice, and I think that's one of the best reasons to get a cheap watch, a shitter, if you will, as a sort of a trial watch, a practice watch. And that's sort of my my philosophy when it comes to starting out in watches, because that's the way I went with Blue Mako. I was getting ready to get the sub, but I thought, I'm not sure if I'm going to like wearing a watch and a dive watch and a mechanical watch. Got the sub $200 Blue Mako, loved it, and it sort of confirmed that I wanted a sub. And thinking about it, I actually bought this sub without ever having touched a sub or even a Rolex for decades. And I got it and it was perfect. And it was sort of thanks to that sort of trial watch that had the same kind of look and same dimensions. And so if you haven't already done that, I would do that because I think you might come to like the 40 millimeter look. And look, I mean, big watches are still sort of in, and if people can pull off 45 millimeter watches and 42 millimeter watches and 50 millimeter watches, I think you're okay. So I wouldn't rule out 40 millimeter watches. All right. And he writes at the end, and I'm skipping one question we'll come back to. I guess I will just buy a 114-270, but it is quite mainstream and also a bit uninspiring, maybe too perfect. Love to hear your thoughts about that. Keep up the great content and best regards from Germany. Thank you so much, Martin. All right, that last line speaks volumes to me. I imagine him writing it, head hanging, a bit of sadness in his voice. I guess I'll just buy a 114-270, but it's quite mainstream and also a bit uninspiring. Well, look, I mean, if you think it's boring now, you wait till you buy it and wear it for a couple months. The best time in the relationship with your watch is right before you get it and right after you get it. That's like the honeymoon period. And it all goes downhill from there, okay? If you don't like it now before you even have it, steer clear. It's not the watch for you. And I hear you on that because I think Explorers are kind of boring too. They're just not my watch. I want to like them, right? They're attractive watches, but they just do nothing for me. And if I could flip a switch and sort of come to like it, I probably would, because I wouldn't mind picking up one myself. But attraction is not a choice, and you're not attracted to this watch. Neither am I, and I would steer clear of it. I mean, you sold your 14000M Air King 34 millimeter piece because you said it was a bit boring, right? And you also said that it wasn't quite the dial variation that you wanted. So you went into that watch not 100% liking it. And you should learn from that, because it feels like you're not 100% sure about this 36 millimeter Explorer. And so I would steer clear of that. You want something a little bit more interesting. And I think OPs are more interesting because they have those dial colors, all right? And I'll just throw out some ideas. Now, I would say you might want to look at a 37 millimeter Yachtmaster. It would give you a different aesthetic and the rotating bezel, which is interesting in, practice when you use it and also visually. But, I'm just throwing that out there. But do I think you should go 37 millimeter Yachtmaster? No. I mean, look, I know a guy who has one. We ride the same bus, and I always look at it and think, oh, you're so close to having such a cool watch, just 3 millimeters away, but you miss it. And close, but certainly no cigar. And so while I throw that out, I would pretty quickly dismiss that if you do want to go watch with a rotating bezel, 40 millimeters. Again, come to grips with 40 millimeters. I think it looks fine on you, right? And it just opens up a lot of possibilities. But, you seem to favor these smooth bezel, time-only, kind of simple watches, and you bring up the Milgauss, and I think that's perfect. Look, I saw your email address. It looks like you deal with the sciences in some way. This is a watch for scientists. It's got the special superpower of anti-magnetization. And look, you talk about those orange accents. They make the watch interesting. Are they not going to go with things? Look, everything goes with everything pretty much as far as watches go. I mean, people wear suits and G-Shocks and Casios together. So are orange accents going to throw off an outfit? I would say no. In fact, you're going to look down and those orange accents are probably going to just be a source of pleasure and visual stimulation. And it's got that really interesting second hand that I love. A lot of people don't, but I love it. I think it's really interesting, really unique, and boy, that's not boring at all. And it seems to fit you perfectly if you're in the sciences. And I think you hit the nail on the head right here. I think the Milgauss 116400 white dial, I think that's what you should go for. Size-wise, it's awesome. It's got that little bit of bling to it with the polished middle links, and that's what you should go for. You say right here, you say that you find it extremely interesting. Look, you got bored with your first Rolex. You want an interesting Rolex. You call this one interesting. It is interesting. I second it. I think that's the one you should go for. So my advice would be that 40 millimeter white dial Milgauss. And if you do want something a little less Milgaussy, then I would consider an OP, either a 39 or 36 millimeter OP with a cool dial color. You know, some of the dial colors are just amazing. I mean, I don't know which one I like more. The blue, the white, the white grape, the red grape. I mean, they get out there, and you know, I think they're so much more interesting than a 36 millimeter Explorer. I would avoid that. All right. So good luck. Let me know what you choose, Martin. Okay, he has one more question, and this is the other $10 he sent me. My second question: I will be in Japan in summer, mostly in Nagoya. I used to live in Nagoya. Do you recommend buying an Explorer or Milgauss over there rather than in Europe? It's a great question because I've never really been shopping in Europe. Well, I've been to Amsterdam, and more choices here, beautiful examples here, very trustworthy dealers here, great experience. You won't have to pay tax. Our price is a little bit more expensive here probably, but it's worth it because the pieces are so nice that it's worth it. It's worth it. And the selection is unbeatable. So I would say hold off and give it some thought. Wait for your trip, and you might be able to make something happen over here. And he says, and how much do you charge for a watch hunt in Tokyo? All right, well, full day, $200, but if it's like a half a day, I'm meeting a guy next month and meet him at like 3 in the afternoon, and we're going to spend the evening hunt for watches, and $100 for that. So 200 USD all day, 100 for like a half a day. And boy, you'll be sick of watches by the end of it. You'll see so many watches that it'll blow your mind. So I would definitely wait before pulling the trigger until your trip, because you'll see Milgauss upon Milgauss upon Milgauss. The hardest thing will be choosing which one, right? But yeah, I've got some advice as far as that goes as well. Anyway, Martin, congratulations on your PhD. Avoid that Explorer. It's already boring you and you don't even have it. I think the Milgauss is what you want, or a cool color dialed OP. Let Martin know what he should get. Take care. Thanks for watching. See you next time.